Welcome to the Wellfuel Podcast, your spot for everything gut health, detox, hormones, a healthy home, mold, and everything in between. I'm your host, Isabel Smith. I'm an integrative and functional registered dietitian and the founder of Isabel Smith Nutrition. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Wellfuel Podcast. This is Isabel, and I'm your host. And today we are talking about what to eat during the phases of your cycle. This is a super important topic, a very helpful, and one that we can all lean into a little bit more. Anybody that has a cycle can utilize this, whether you have quote unquote issues or not. And as a little sneak preview, this is going to be something that we're going to be focusing on more later in the year here. So you're not going to want to miss this one. So when it comes to hormone balance, every single hormone in our bodies communicate with one another, whether it's insulin, whether it's epinephrine, norepinephrine, estrogen. Hormones are communication, basically messengers. And so one of the best ways to positively influence the overall hormonal balance in your body, which everybody should be paying attention to, whether you have a blood sugar issue or not, whether you have period problems or not, whether you can talk to men differently, but I was going to say testosterone, but testosterone is super important for women. And one of the best ways you can inform your body to regulate hormones, improve hormone cycling for energy, for periods, for insulin balance, for all the things is to eat regularly and sleep regularly. What does that mean? That means it doesn't have to be perfect, but we should be planning to eat and sleep roughly in the same time frames on a day-to-day basis. This is so important. I can't even tell you how important it is to try to be as consistent as you can from day to day with eating and sleeping. Again, our bodies do not require perfection. Our bodies are very supportive, willing, caring, loving beings, no matter how much of a war you're in with your body at the moment, which again, be nice to it. It hears everything you say to it. That's a different topic of conversation that we will have. But if you can try to be as consistent as possible within time windows, let's say, let me give you an example. I am a very routine person. I have to be, but I do believe that it has helped me in my own healing journey. When I say I have to, I feel like garbage if I'm not. So I sleep roughly between 10 and 11 every day, and I wake up between 6:30 and 7:30. I eat breakfast probably between 9 and 10 most days, including the weekends, and I eat lunch somewhere between 1 and 2 and dinner somewhere between 7 and 8. That's just the schedule that works for me. I am not trying to intermittent fast, and nor am I definitely not trying to shrink my eating window down. In fact, I really would not recommend this for anybody, particularly somebody who's trying to heal their body or somebody who's got a lot of inflammation going on. This is a bad plan. So I would suggest trying to find a way to write a plan for yourself. Work with somebody, reach out to us if you need help. We do this all the time. Foundational stuff is not sexy, but it is the most important thing you can do to support your health. There's no amount of supplement, hormonal support, testing, that I can give you if you are not eating, sleeping, pooping, drinking water. Foundational. Exercise comes next. Honestly, you need to be making sure that you are doing these foundational things in order to keep moving the needle on your health. Otherwise, not a whole lot of stuff that we do here can really help. So one of the things that eating regularly, sleeping regularly can do is help to support your circadian rhythm. The entire human body works on the circadian rhythm. This is why people who are night shift workers or have kind of like inverse schedules struggle so much with. It is not impossible, but again, like somebody who has a more like sleep-wake schedule and awake in daylight, asleep in night, etc., has a little bit of an easier time because our bodies do take cues off of the lightness and the darkness. The recommendation to like open the blinds and look at the lightness first thing in the morning is a good recommendation. It does help us get the cue that it's time to wake up, helps us with natural cortisol bump, which we want in the morning. That is our get up and go early in the day. And then at night, making sure we're not in super bright light, being mindful of blue light, quieting down our light exposure so that our brains can get the memo to produce melatonin. Melatonin and cortisol work in opposition. When one is elevated, the other is on the low side, right? So that they sort of flip-flop back and forth in the daytime. If you looked at a graph, you would see that in the morning, cortisol was more elevated and melatonin was lower. And then as the end of the day comes, the melatonin is going to be up and the cortisol is going to be down. traditionally. Now, there can be, of course, scenarios in which things are not that way, and somebody's going to feel it for sure. So overall, we want to be making sure that we are allowing our bodies to expect what's coming next: food, sleep, stress. The more routine you can make it, the better. I find one of the biggest hangups for people in just the land of regulation, regularity, etc., is that maybe 5 days a week they are consistent, and then Saturday and Sunday they just blow it out of the water. This makes it super, super hard for our bodies to regulate themselves, to expect some kind of expectation. The more routine we can make ourselves and make our consistencies, the better overall. So what that means is that we want to be making sure that though we are not looking for perfection, I will say this over and over and over again, we are not looking for perfection here. We are looking for consistency. And that will help us to be more expecting of regularity in cycles, in rhythms. And I can promise you one thing: if you can be in a rhythm in your life in some way, shape, or form, and I know everybody's life is busy and people have kids and things come up and whatever, it will help you no matter where you are hormonally in your life. So this particular podcast episode is for people with menstruation. We're going to do one on perimenopause. We're going to do one on menopause. But I will tell you the same thing throughout, that the importance of the routine and the rhythm is more serious than I can ever promise. It is so helpful for our bodies to expect, because that expectation allows for regular rhythms, regular hormones, regular release of all these chemicals, neurochemicals, and that just helps cycles to be more regular and more consistent. So when we're talking about cycle health, if we are, the more it is called a cycle, right? As I just explained to you, the more regular the cycle of our day-to-day can be, the more regular the cycle can be overall. And this is really cool. I will tell you things that help to promote, and maybe I'm a nerd, so I think this is really cool. But when people fall into this rhythm more, it is incredible what their cycles do. And they could have taken all the exogenous help and the supplements and the this and the that, but if they did not do this key piece, they would not have noticed as much support as they possibly could. Perimenopause is definitely a thing. So what I'm about to say has no bearing on that, okay? Perimenopause is definitely a thing, but I very much believe, and I've seen it with our patients, that perimenopause can be exacerbated, or symptoms of, by lack of rhythm, lack of proper nutrition, underlying infections, mold, toxicity, etc. Big time. Big time, it can be affected by all these factors. And in fact, I'm writing myself a note to make a podcast on perimenopause and talk all about this, because it is so important. How your body perceives its environment is going to dictate pretty much everything, especially as a woman and a man, but especially with this cycle thing that we are. So now that we've talked about sleeping and eating on regular cycles, timings, doing the same thing with your exercise. And again, we're going to have a whole conversation about the importance of timing your exercise. You can go back and look for the episode with Stefania Oakes. Wink, wink. There's going to be some more fun stuff coming with her later in the year here. And we're going to be doing more things over time, kind of matching exercise and food. And so stay tuned on that. But if we can be in a rhythm with our exercise as well, again, our bodies have this natural rhythm of cortisol release. When we exercise, we do get a cortisol bump. So doing that at a particular time of day can help to perpetuate healthy hormones. So again, we will talk about that in a separate episode, but let's talk about what to eat in the various different parts of your cycle. So I'm going to oversimplify this. Okay. Not every one of these timeframes is 7 days, but to make it easier for somebody to follow a food plan, which will help the overall cycling of their cycle, we're going to just say that this is 7. All of these are 7 days. Okay. So menstruation, days 1 through 7, let's say. Mine is more like a 4-day, but I'm going to still do these things for 7 days roughly. Second part of the cycle, we've got the follicular phase. This is when your body is preparing to ovulate. We're going to again say this is 7 days. It's not quite. It's actually not at all, but anyway. But for ease of consistency, again, I think it's easier for people to plan, meal prep, etc., around kind of 7-day windows. Next, we're in the ovulation phase, right? Ovulation phase is really actually quite short, but at the same time, again, all of these foods can help us with just regular estrogen production, management, etc. And then we have the luteal phase. The luteal phase is when the lining is growing and then we're getting ready to shed in the menstruation phase. So we basically go from menstruation, which is the first, let's call it 7 days, to follicular phase. The body's preparing to ovulate. So let's call that 7 to 14. And then we're going to say, for ease of convenience here, we're going to say days 14 to 21 is kind of ovulation. We're preparing for ovulation. We're ovulating. And then we've got days 21 through 28, which is luteal. Once you ovulate, you will be 12 to 16 days in the luteal phase before you bleed. Supporting these foods, whether it's exact to the day or not, totally good. Don't worry about it. Again, our bodies do not require perfectionism. So you can be all perfectionism if you want to be. I would not recommend it. And that's, again, another separate podcast episode we could talk about. But your body will love the routine and the rhythm. And even if you get, I'm going to tell you about what foods to eat here in a second. And we actually have a freebie that we can, if you guys want to shoot us a DM, and I will put it in the show notes what to say, but let's call it, I'm going to say it right here. Let's call it cycle syncing. Shoot us a DM, reply back to this podcast episode. We will send you our freebie on cycle syncing, what to eat rather in the various different phases of your cycle. You will see that this really makes a difference for the overall ease, continuity, movement of your cycle in a month. So when we talk about the menstruation phase, what's important? So what's happening during menstruation is that we're losing blood. For some of us, it's more than others. And we really want to work on replenishing 3 key nutrients: iron, right, to help replenish blood loss; magnesium and other minerals to help support the cramping, muscle contraction and relaxation; and vitamin C. A lot of women get inflamed during their cycle. And so foods that are high in vitamin C, which, by the way, it's not just the citrus fruits. I don't eat them, as you guys may know if you guys follow me on social media. So I don't even consider these. I am personally most focused on magnesium and minerals, and I'm focused on them all the time, frankly. So iron, magnesium, vitamin C. Making sure that you are having some form of electrolytes that is helpful, again, for this muscle contraction, relaxation. I had a crazy happening not so long ago. In December, I had unknowingly left a tampon inside of me for 5 days. My body was screaming. Every lymph node was inflamed. It was a tiny little light one. Too busy, yada, yada, need to slow down, slow my roll. Thankfully, the universe had my back, or whoever it is up there, my guardian angels, God, sent me to the gynecologist for a regular routine follow-up, in which she was like, Isabel, as I was like, ouch, that hurts. She's like, Isabel, there's a tampon in here. It had been there for at least 5 days. Every lymph node was swollen. I was calling my doctors saying, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Turns out when you leave a tampon in your body starts to scream. Anyway, a month later, I was having trouble with tolerating tampons. I've really only used tampons since I got my period when I was 13. My body was like actually trying to expel the tampon. So I was just coming out of a period of being up and like placid with my family and not eating as many vegetables over the holidays. So I think that contributed. But minerals, so like Epsom salt baths, foods that are high in minerals, which again, I will talk about in a second. If you're somebody who runs really inflamed during your cycle, you're going to want to include more anti-inflammatory foods. Consider not having beef, red meat, which can elevate levels of prostaglandins, which are inflammatory chemicals. Be really careful with coffee. Coffee can dehydrate. The more dehydrated you are, the worse your cramps can be, kind of thing. Iron, super important. If you're somebody who needs an iron supplement, which a lot of us do, I have been taking one now for about a month and a half, and I definitely feel better. I take a plant-based iron supplement. I will check my levels, but I have we have heme and non-heme iron. Heme iron is, think of animal proteins, chicken, fish, etc., red meat, which I just told you not to have a ton of during your cycle if you're very sensitive to it. Definitely want to be including more omegas. In our hint course that we're going to be having all about all this stuff, we're going to have special supplements organized for each part of your cycle. We're really excited about it. So I'm just teasing you here about what's coming. But non-heme iron sources include plants, deep green vegetables, legumes. All of these foods also have a tremendous amount of minerals in them. And I just said to you that minerals, were really important. So you can double dose on both iron and minerals by eating more of these foods in this part of your cycle. And then vitamin C, everybody thinks that it's citrus, as I said before. Every single raw fruit and vegetable has vitamin C in it. Vitamin C is super anti-inflammatory, and it can come from any raw fruit or vegetable. If you're having trouble with tolerating the raw, maybe it's cold or you're not into it, try juicing, blending. Any of that stuff will help. It's when we cook it that we lose vitamin C. Interestingly, when we cook foods, we actually get more nutritional benefit out of them. People don't realize that, but we do lose the vitamin C. So some example foods: zucchini, sweet potato. Obsessed with sweet potato. I love to juice sweet potato. Sweet potato, you use it raw and you juice it. It's got levels of ellagic acid in it, which are actually anti-colon cancer. Beets, obsessed. Also, you can juice them, but you can also cook them, chop them up raw, put them in your salad. Sweet green, I never really thought about this until one day I stopped, smelled the roses and watched what they were making in my salad when I asked for beets, and I realized they were raw. Delicious. Carrots, tomatoes, celery, cucumber, avocado, cabbage, a little bit with these estrogen detox foods, but that's going to be more kind of in other parts of the cycle. High quality protein, like we just talked about. Seed cycling can be a very, very important part of process of regular hormone balance, right? So in the first half of the cycle, which is days basically 1 through 14, we use pumpkin and flaxseed, about a tablespoon of each a day. And then in the back half of the cycle, we use sunflower and sesame seeds. The seed cycling is so powerful. I cannot even tell you. We have a discount code for BEEYA, BEEYA, and they are a wonderful seed cycling company. I'm going to stick it in the show notes below. And so stay tuned in the bottom of the show notes on that one. But they make it really easy. You can just open the bag and take a scoop of the already prepackaged seeds. Pumpkin and flax, tablespoon of each a day in the first half, sunflower, sesame in the back half, tablespoon of each. Remember our iron foods and our vitamin C foods. Cherries are a favorite for me, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, vitamin C, all the deep greens. So in the first, you may not be that interested in the first 7 days of your cycle and eating what I just said. You could cook them, juice them, blend them. Chocolate is certainly on our menu for anti-inflammatory. Be careful of eating too much of it because the caffeine can certainly intensify cramps. Again, comment cycle syncing. We will send you our shopping list for your period. Phase 2, which is the follicular phase, right? We're making the follicle. What we're working on is we are working on foods that support gut health for regular healthy pooping and foods that help to support estrogen balance and metabolism as we start to ramp up the estrogen levels towards ovulation. After we ovulate, we do get a bump of progesterone, which is lovely. So we all through the menstrual cycle want to be focusing on clean proteins. That is a harder thing to come by these days than it used to be. Salmon, eggs, chicken, beef, pork. You know, we're still focused on dark leafy greens with the minerals. They help support gut health, pooping, including spinach, bok choy, mixed greens. The bok choy is a cruciferous, technically, and can help with estrogen balance and detox. Good fiber, estrogen supportive, cruciferous. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage can help to support both pooping as well as liver health. Remember, we're sort of thinking about systems as we work through the cycle. The menstrual phase is really replenishing, supporting inflammation. The follicular is sort of starting to support estrogen, pooping, gut health, etc. Healthy fat is always on the menu, including olives and avocado. And, you know, we're still in that first flax and pumpkin seed thing, right? Now, as we go into the ovulation phase, typically will sort of throw us into the back half of the cycle. We'll move into the sunflower sesame phase of the cycle syncing. So we're still focused on estrogen balance big time, and we're really even more so supporting fiber, gut health, pooping. This is where we start to see people have trouble in the back half of their cycle with going to the bathroom. So the better we can get ahead of this, the better overall. Making sure you're working on your sleep throughout your cycle, really important. And again, being as consistent as you can will help support the way you feel throughout the entirety of the cycle. Foods that I love to include, I might use a little bit more whole grains here if it's appropriate for you, like quinoa and teff, buckwheat. Always our cruciferous vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, radishes. Our healthy fats, including chia seeds, avocado, and olives, again, always. We want to be making sure that we are supporting mineral health, including calcium. So you might include a little bit of grass-fed dairy if it applies for you, or a fortified hemp milk, coconut milk. Asparagus, liver, healthy foods, asparagus, beets, those are always on the table as people start to feel like they're maybe retaining a little bit of fluid. We want to include foods with high minerals, high electrolytes, and that help us drain the extra fluid that we're hanging on to, which includes asparagus, celery, beets, these high potassium foods. Again, a sweet potato and a juicer is always a good idea. Lots of water, lots and lots of water to help keep everything in motion. If I had to make a juice for this moment in time, I would do a celery, cucumber, lemon if you can, peel it, a head of romaine, and some celery. Oh, I already said celery, parsley. And if you need a little sweetness, go for some apple or pear. The detox potential of that is super, super important. So then we move into the luteal phase, which tends to be the bumpiest part of the cycle. It's before you start bleeding. Please do practice some breath work. We have a great breath work on the podcast. If you search back, breath work by Bia, Theta Breathwork, recorded a special episode for us. Go check it out. She's got a great membership. We love her. She's a great friend of mine. I'm obsessed with the breath work. It's been super powerful in my own life. Would highly recommend. So we want to help support signs and symptoms and inflammation and crankiness in the body that starts to come up in this back half, last part of the cycle. So we're really working on supporting good quality starches, continuing with going to the bathroom, continuing to support inflammation now, sort of leaning a little bit more into these antioxidants. So sweet potato, pumpkin, squash, root vegetables, super favorite. Depending on how you feel, how much water you're retaining, you might or may not want to be doing some grains. Always high quality proteins. You might want to consider doing a little bit more with the iron rich foods towards the end of the luteal cycle or luteal phase, if you have a regular cycle length. And, the main point with the luteal phase is to be supporting, again, this like gut health thing is so important in the overall, land of what do we eat and how do we get it out of us and how do we support the regularity in the movement. For many, we start to see PMS and PMD cycle symptoms here. So starting to lean into a little bit more of the vitamin C foods to help with progesterone production. The progesterone is going to be the most helpful thing here to help kind of keep the cycle happy. And it only comes from ovulation. So the broccoli, cauliflower, tomatoes, bell peppers, if you can tolerate them, oranges, papaya, that sort of stuff with vitamin C helps to just support the healthy luteal phase progesterone piece of things. You might have a little more sugar cravings in this phase. You might have a little bit more trouble pooping. Using things like flax and chia seed, because they make a gel when you add water to them, and that can help move these things along. Your sleep might be more trouble. So be careful with the caffeine though, towards the end of the day. I would highly recommend that you try to keep your caffeine before 12 or 1 p.m. and then you cut it off from there, generally speaking, so that you can have regular, healthy sleep. And protein really is important here, right? So we're sort of just preparing, we're supporting our symptoms and our cycle. We're working on pooping, we're working on supporting, just keeping everybody happy, high mineral foods, making sure you're getting enough protein, making sure you're getting good vitamin C, so that in the menstrual phase, we can kind of continue those and help keep everybody happy. Anything anti-inflammatory that we can do, any healthy fats, you will want to include some salmon, maybe if you can get good quality, will help us tremendously. Stress management, breath work, gentle exercise can be really powerful in this, but you don't want to overdo anything. And again, we're going to be talking about how to move. Stefania was actually on the podcast last year, if you want to search for that episode, and we can put it in our show notes. But I would say definitely want to be tuning in to how your body feels and trying to match your movement and how much output you're doing, along with just kind of what you're noticing from your body. So I hope this was really helpful and insightful. Nobody's perfect. If you include the vegetables and stuff that I just mentioned, but in no particular order, that's cool too. Please take care of yourselves, and thanks for tuning in as always, and we will see you next time right here on the Wellfuel Podcast. As always, thanks so much for listening to the Wellfuel Podcast. We're so happy to have you. To make sure you don't miss a beat, please subscribe either on Apple or Spotify, because we have tons of great content. If you want to make sure that you're up to date on everything we're doing in the business with our clients and new offers and all the things, make sure that you check us out at Isabel Smith Nutrition on Instagram and isabelsmithnutrition.com. See you guys soon.